Brian and Jannelle Mornings here with Rachel and Ron, and also welcoming our friend, Professor Sean O'Connor. He's assistant professor of digital media at Cedarville University and always comes with great tips in terms of things to watch and look out for in the movies especially. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, yeah. It's so exciting. We were just talking about Rachel's back to going to the theater. Are you back? Have you been back?
Oh, I've been back since last July, to be honest.
Serious?
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, theaters are taking a lot of precautions
they
in the
are.
last year and a half, obviously. But I have felt safe in terms of being there, and like I've never heard of anyone getting COVID in a movie theater from a movie theater. So it's encouraging. So I've been back a lot.
Yeah, that's good. There's several ones we're going to talk about today. One in particular is released like today.
Yes.
Including the one that I go to all the time. So that's a major theater. Which one's that one?
So what maybe some of our listeners are already aware of, there's a lot of faith-based or Christian, even Christian-made films that are being released over shorter periods of time for like one night only, things like that. So one movie that was out earlier this week is called Sabine, Tortured for Christ, which is a film that I believe Voice of the Martyrs produced about her life and the conflict in World War II and their living out their faith in that setting.
Yeah.
That film, I believe, is out of theaters. One movie that comes out and it gets a wider release today is called C.S. Lewis, The Most Reluctant Convert, which is a narrative film about his life with I don't know if it's starring Max McLean, but it's produced by his theater group from New York or wherever they're from. And that movie was, I think, it was in theaters for like a day earlier, and it got such a great response all over the country that it's out in like a wider release starting this weekend. So it's in Valley View, it's in Middleburg, it's in Akron somewhere. It's in several theaters. So
is this about his life or about his faith journey? Like what is it?
Unfortunately, I haven't seen it yet. I hope I do get to. I feel like it's probably a mixture of both.
Okay.
And made by I think people who are very explicitly believe in Jesus and are faithful in proclaiming that message through the film.
Is this the first movie of its kind for C.S. Lewis?
It might, well, in terms of a theatrically released film that focuses specifically on that. I mean, you think of a movie called Shadowlands that came out several years ago where Anthony Hopkins plays C.S. Lewis, and that's more about his relationship with Joy Gresham rather than more of the Christian faith aspect. But this is, I think, much more explicitly about it. I'm assuming that J.R.R. Tolkien is a character in the story. So fans of C.S. Lewis will probably enjoy that.
Which will be me. So hopefully Woody's listening because that could be a date night. Just going to plug that real quick. But but you know what? I'm wondering if it is based off of the book because isn't there a book called C.S. Lewis has so many books, but the Reluctant Christian book.
Yeah. I'd like to think that it might be like an amalgamation of sources from his writings, maybe other biographers, and rather than just, here's the story that we kind of imagine it to be.
I'm hopeful and I'm glad that it actually lasted for more than one day because I was like, I missed it. So to know that it is going for, do you know how many days?
I mean, at least the weekend, possibly even the next 7 days. But it's in several Cleveland Akron theaters as of today.
In terms of ages, would it be something, let's say, that a teen would appreciate or children?
I believe if it's rated at all, it's probably PG. It's probably designed to be something that families can go into and discuss. I imagine, some of like World War II aspects of his life may be very briefly touched on. But yeah, I feel like that it's probably designed for families to go and have that discussion.
That's exciting. That's on your list of things.
It's on my list today. Tomorrow, let's pick a day.
Oh, yeah. There's one movie that you wanted to talk about today that I haven't even heard of and can't wait to get into. Can you give us the title again?
Sure. It's a movie that comes out next Friday that maybe listeners are familiar with because of marketing that's online at this point. It's called King Richard. King Richard is about Richard Williams, who's the father of Venus and Serena Williams.
Oh, yes.
Starring Will Smith as the lead.
What?
And it's a film that focuses on it's more his story than the girl's story and kind of his finding a coach for them and their relationship and their whole family's relationship. It comes out next Friday. I got to see it with my wife at a film festival last month in Indiana, and we saw it with a large crowd in the theater, and it was a really good reaction to it, positive reaction to it. Like, it's a very funny film, entertaining film, and it's something that I think families with preteens, teenagers can go see, even Christian families, because I think there's some discussion to be had about that, which we can talk about. But that's a film that's getting a lot of buzz, especially for Will Smith. A lot of people are saying that's his best role.
Wow!
Are you serious? Wow.
Yeah, and he is very good in the movie. The whole cast is very good. The girls that play Venus and Serena in particular, I thought they do a great job.
Oh, that sounds good. What are the major themes? Because we're not very familiar. I've heard of his dad and his influence, but what are the major themes and lessons that you would say you walked away with?
Sure. So, it focuses more on him. And from very early on in the film, it's established that, like, he is the one that's taking a lot of initiative to get his girls started in this professional tennis arena and getting coaches and tournaments and things like that. And it's shown in the film. He has, I believe, like an 85-page plan that he's written since they were really like infants, basically.
Wow.
Of all the steps that he's going to take, and they're going to get them to that point.
Like, he decided that for wow.
And so you see him early on, practicing with them on different courts and going to different coaches and trying to pitch them to different coaches with video footage. And a lot of them are like, an 85-page plan. Like, you can't manufacture all of this. Yeah. And yet, as we know, Venus and Serena to be now, it worked. So
yes, it did.
But I think what comes with that is this major conflict of, like, what is then the relationship between the father and the daughters? Right. Are they, is he exhibiting too much control? What does his wife think about all this? And you see throughout the film, he's an example of, a father who is looking out for his daughters and wants the best for his children. Yeah. But as earthly fathers do, maybe, pushes the boundaries on some things. And you find out later in the film, there's a backstory of his own life and previous marriage that's hinted at, where it's kind of hinted that what he's doing now is trying to redeem himself from failed fatherhood in the past. And, I think seeing a story like this that is very explicitly about, what we might say, a father having plans for his children, giving good gifts to his children. I mean, certainly we can relate that to what we read in Scripture, and maybe Christian families listening right now, what they've experienced in their own life. And I think it's worth having the discussion and prayer between parents and children about how do we do that according to God's Word.
Did you see kind of hints of understanding a father's heart in the sense of, like, we do the best we can and we make mistakes? Like, was in terms of watching it with your child, was there a lot of focus in that?
I think so. I mean, I think some of the best scenes in the film are between Will Smith and the daughter, like one-on-one. I love you. I want the best for you, and I know I've messed up in certain things, and the girls are forgiving and say, I'm not going to let you down. I mean, you can see that even in the trailer for the film. Yeah, and I think the content, the story works to make that effective. The performances work well to make that effective. Yeah, it's a good time. I hope people get to see it.
Do you feel like it could help people navigate rejections in different industries? Do they focus in on how they dealt with rejection, or is it more so just the family itself?
I think it focuses more on the family. I wonder if the story had focused on Venus and Serena at an older age, because really you don't see them any older than like 13 in the film. Okay. And so they face rejection and loss, but they are still at a young age where maybe it's not as impactful for them. But even if it is, the film focuses more on Richard anyway, I would say. Okay. And like it's his goal lived out through them. And so it's both.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, do you know of the family's involvement with this? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So actually you can look up some of the stories about how the film came to be and like who owns the rights to Richard Williams' life story to make it into a film. But basically once Venus and Serena watched the film, they put their name attached to it. They enjoyed it. Apparently, Will Smith says they cried the whole way through, and they're full participants in that. So, but I also appreciate, because sometimes you get the real life people involved in a biopic like this, and they are like micromanaging how good they look in this movie, and the film really doesn't shy away from the struggles they had and the conflict that they had, and I appreciate that.
Christine just texted in, and in regards to the movie about C.S. Lewis, she wants to know, is it available to access from home? She's had recent surgeries. I know Disney has done that, released new movies and made it available at home.
I think the people that made that C.S. Lewis film don't have the capacity to have it on streaming as well as in the theater. Yeah. I imagine in the next couple months it will be available somewhere to rent on iTunes or something. Yeah. I will say about King Richard, it is coming out in theaters and on HBO Max on the same day. And so if you don't feel safe about going to the theater, you can watch it there. Mm-hmm. But again, I feel safe going to the theater. And honestly, this kind of movie it has a huge range of emotions. It's got comedy. Nice. It's got, the people I was watching the film with, they were laughing at a lot of scenes. They were cheering when the girls would win, these different tournaments, and seeing that movie with that kind of a crowd can be really entertaining and invigorating. So I will
say I kind of like the at home because I have a big family and it's way cheaper.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
To do HBO.
Yeah. I noticed that the C.S. Lewis movie, The Most Reluctant Convert, has been extended through November 18th at theaters. Mm-hmm. So it has had such good reviews that people said, well, we'll keep it open.
Yeah. So make sure to check that out. That King Richards one sounds really awesome. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Professor Sean O'Connor, he's assistant professor of digital media at Cedarville University. If people want to connect with you and ask more questions, how can they do that?
Feel free to email me. My email address is soconnor@cedarville.edu. I'm happy to answer any questions about the school or the program or movies in general.
You can also go to brianandjannelle.org, and we'll make sure to connect you. Thank you, Professor O'Connor.
Thank you.